Hey folks, it's Emmet once again. And yeah, I've reviewed this film before, I know, but this one's mainly for me because I had reviewed this film and my reviews for Critters 2, 3, and 4 are up, but the first one got a copyright claim, so now it's weird just me having reviews for 2, 3, and 4, but not a review for the first film. So I wanted to do a review of the first film and sort of make that complete. Um, I know I have a couple other stuff like that, but Critters I enjoy. I mean, of the four films, I Critters 2 is probably my favorite, but I still really enjoy the first one. Third and fourth film, I like okay, but if you want to hear more, again, I did do reviews for Critters 2, Critters 3, and Critters 4. Those reviews are still up. Now, Critters 1, and this review is probably not going to be long because I don't need to go in depth on Critters. I mean, what can I say about Critters? When it came out, it was promoted as, oh, this is our version of Gremlins. And I remember hearing that around 2011 there was talks of a documentary being made on Critters. I don't know whatever happened to that, but I would love to see it because I like the film. Be interested to because there's no features. I mean, you did a hidden alternate ending for the first film, which is bullshit. It's the same thing except I'm trying to remember now. It's so much bullshit. I don't remember it. Shit. I think in one the house doesn't. I want to say one the house doesn't rebuild itself, and the other it does. Or it's not much of a difference in the alternate ending. It's not much of a difference. But I would like to see a documentary on this. I mean, you got Dee Wallace-Stone, Emmet Walsh is the sheriff, Billy Greenbush is the dad, Dee Wallace-Stone is the mom, Scott Grimes, who would be in part two. He was also another film I reviewed. God, what was the name of that film? It's a film I really do enjoy with Scott Grimes. He's the guy I like. I liked him as the kid in this. You could say he was the lead of the film. I thought he was a likable kid. He wasn't annoying. He wasn't irritating. I thought he did a good job in the second film as well as the character of Brad Brown. And the thing about the before I get into Scott Grimes, because IMDb is taking forever to open up, I know the idea behind this film kind of reminds me of the original idea that Steven Spielberg had for Night Skies? That it was a family on a farm, and you'd have a bunch of tiny aliens terrorizing a family, and it was a horror film. Only in that one, there was like one named Scar or something, and then there was one that was kind of a decent one. And of course, then Steven Spielberg didn't want to do a horror film. He wanted to do a family film, so that became E.T. So I don't know if that maybe it's just because it's a family on a farm and little tiny aliens are trying to kill them. But the film I was talking about was Scott Grimes. It's an 80s film, so I gotta go all the way down there. It is a film called Nightlife, which I reviewed on here. It's a 1989 film called Nightlife. It has a different title as well. Not only is it Nightlife, but God, there was another title too for this film. I know, I should be more prepared, but I know there's another title for Nightlife. Can I remember what the title was? Grave Misdemeanors. That was the other title. Grave Misdemeanors, also known as Nightlife. It's like a teen zombie horror with humor in it. Nightlife I enjoy. Again, I reviewed that film with Scott Grimes and John Aston and stuff. That's on my channel. At least the review should be. Last time I reviewed it, it should still be up there. That's an underrated film. That's a film that should get a DVD release, official DVD release. This was directed by Stephen Herek. This is the same guy who did Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, The Mighty Ducks, at least the first one. I think he did Mr. Holland's Opus and the 9601 Dalmatians. Did quite a few good stuff, but now he's doing shit like Into the Blue 2, The Cutting Edge Fire and Ice, and he did the fucking Chaperone. The fucking movie was Triple H. Where he's a goddamn bus driver or some shit. The Chaperone. I cannot believe that. That's fucking bullshit. The guy who did Critters and Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is now doing The Chaperone. Chaps my ass with fucking Triple H. Triple H sounds like the shit that you need for you itching on your nuts. Triple H. You need Triple H medication. I know Triple H. I know wrestling. I know. I've never been a Triple H guy. That's just me. What's also funny about this film, I mean, it was released by New Line Cinema. Like I said, directed by Stephen Herek. And like I said, it stars Dee Wallace-Stone, you have Scott Grimes. You have Billy Zane in an early role, who gets killed pretty early in the film. Terrence Mann, who is this guy here. You have Don Opper, who would go on to be in all four Critters films. I don't know what happened to Don Opper after that. I know he was in another film called Android. But what I was going to say, what's funny about this film is that, you know how a lot of people are like, oh, in part 4 they went into space. And I'm thinking, yeah, they're aliens. Of course they went into space in part 4. They're aliens. In the first scene of the film, they're in a jail cell in outer space and they break out. They're space criminals. They're alien criminals. So I'm like, of course the fourth one's in outer space. They were in space, but I just find it funny because Leprechaun 4 in space, Hellraiser 4 in space, Jason X, which was Jason Space, but the whole critters are in space. Yeah, they're aliens. That's like saying ET in space. The xenomorph in space. Yeah, they're aliens. Of course they're in space. I always found that was kind of funny when people complain about they're aliens. I mean, oh, Critters 4 was in space. I'm like, the first one's in space. Did you? It's like people tend to forget that they're aliens. And pretty much they roll around. They have they're like porcupine type needles that stick in you and drug you. And in the very first film, and only the first film, this was such a strange thing because I grew up with all of these films. That only the first film they actually grow up. Like, this is not the theatrical poster. The theatrical poster is the gigantic one. Like, that was the theatrical poster, and I actually remember that in the first Ninja Turtle film. That was what Raphael saw. He saw Critters, which of course they're both New Line Cinema, and you saw that poster, that gigantic critter, which appear only at the end of the film. It is strange that none of the Critter sequels go back to the idea of a gigantic critter. I guess maybe people didn't like it. Maybe it, it was hard to control, and people didn't really cry or whine or anything about it. I'm not really complaining about it either. I just find it strange that none of the Critter sequels they have the gigantic, like they morph through time into the gigantic Critter characters. And pretty much they go upon this normal family on a farm. Scott Grimes is a typical kid who has this guy for a friend named Charlie, played by Don Opper, who I think was a cop and now is sort of a. I'm not sure if he used to be a cop, but I know he's the drunk, sort of the town drunk. And they land, they besiege his family, and at the same time you have these alien bounty hunters, where they're totally blank, and then they look on the sort of the media of the 80s, media of course. 80s such a great time because you have finding this guy here singing "Power of the Night." With the calling, it's the power of the night. Which I don't mind that song. I actually like that song. Power of the night. The bounty hunter stuff is interesting. You know, watching it again, it's interesting. I think before I'm like, I will admit I prefer the aliens going after the family on the farm. That's the most interesting part to me of the film. For me, I think a lot of people are more interested in the bounty hunters, and the bounty hunters were cool addition. It's not really a problem that I have. It's just of the two, I prefer because I like the family. I thought Scott Grimes and the dad, Billy Greenbush, and the mom, Dee Wallace-Stone, and the daughter, I forget who. I think it was Nadine Vandervelde. That might have been her. I thought the family worked well. I thought the acting was fine. Not Billy Green, Billy Zane is trying to have fun with the daughter, and they're in the barn, and this alien furball eats out Billy Zane's stomach. Uh, and pretty much throughout the film, it's I like this kid. The kid, and earlier in the film they show that he plays with firecrackers and he uses that before. The family trying to take care of this menace. And I thought the effects worked fine for a low budget film. I thought the family, the acting in the family worked well. Scott Grimes was a likable kid. I did not think he was annoying as well. I like the score by David Newman. I like that song, Power of the Night. Uh, the bounty hunter stuff, the shtick. I'm, the reason I'm not the biggest fan is that it's pretty much them going to a place. One of them, one is Terrence Mann, this guy, and the other never. He always keeps changing his face. I think that works well in the second film because that bounty hunter finds a naked chick and then she goes around topless. Which I'm like, how the fuck did they get away with this in PG-13? And Critters 2, from what I remember, is PG-13. I think I even said in that review, how the fuck did they get away with this in PG-13? Only the 80s. God bless the 80s. But the first, like, that was okay. Yeah, I know titties make me more interested, but I'm a guy, so fuck it. So, but in the first one, it's like, oh, here's a preacher, and now he looks like the preacher guy, the reverend guy. Or they're at a bar, and then he looks like this. Then for a minute, for a little bit, he looks like Charlie, Don Opper's character. And it's pretty much them going to a bowling alley, them going to a church, them going to here, and all they do is just looking for Kreitz, looking for Kreitz. And I don't know what, it just wasn't the most interesting part of the film to me. I like the idea of alien bounty hunters, and I don't think Terrence Mann is bad and stuff. It wasn't the most interesting. I think it's because I like the family and I like the critters as creatures. I like the critters as creatures. I will admit I'm a more fan of critters than the Ghoulies films. Like Ghoulies 2 is my favorite of that franchise. Ghoulies 3, I have silly fun with it. But this one I can watch all four. But I think the first two are the best. And if I had to pick, part 2 would be my favorite. Again, I did a review. You feel free to check that out if you want to hear more. But the first Critters film, I thought went at a decent pace. I liked the look and the simple design of the creatures, of the critters. Uh, Again, I've said this before, I like the family. I like Scott Grimes. Um, I mean, really the only nitpick I have is they have a sequel bait ending, which I'm fine with because we got Critters 2, which I like Critters 2, the main course. Which actually, Critters 2 was directed by Mick Garris. And one of the writers was, I think, David Twohy. Yeah, written by David Twohy and Mick Garris. I'm talking about Critters 2. David Twohy was the guy who would later direct Pitch Black. I believe that's David Twohy. I could be wrong. But anyway, yeah, I told you it wasn't going to be much of a review. I mean, Critters. What more can I say about Critters? I think it's an entertaining, little creature feature flick. Has the bits of humor. Um, the Critters are not the most scariest villain ever, but I think they even knew that too. But I can see the resemblance between this and Gremlins, only the fact that it's small creatures going after something, but really that's it. Because I was in a small town, while here it's mostly takes place on a farm, and the critters and Gremlins are, I think, definitely different, other than they eat. But I would say Gremlins are a little bit more fun, and critters are a little bit more. This is going to sound stupid, a little bit more serious than Gremlins. I say only a little bit more, not a ton more. But Critters is one of those films that who doesn't know Critters? Either you grew up with the film, or if you haven't, give it a look, and you might at least like the first two. And again, it's sad that this film does not have, at least the first one, some type of special edition DVD or that documentary, whatever happened to it. I don't know what happened to that documentary, but at least on the first film. I would not mind having people talk about the second film either. But I think Critters was obviously a decent sized hit to have 3 more sequels. I am surprised. I'm sure one day they'll do a remake, a reboot of Critters. I would not be surprised. Both full screen and widescreen on each film. Plus, they have the trailer. It's pretty much all the features on all that hidden alternate ending. Oh, another thing, Emmet Walsh is the sheriff, but even though he gets one of the top billings, he's not in the film too much, and Emmet Walsh really doesn't have much to do. He just called it, he looks around, and then at the end, he's pretty much just there. So Emmet Walsh, I like him as an actor. It's cool that he's in the film, but he doesn't have much to do. But I'm fine with that because, again, Scott Grimes, I thought he was a likable kid, and I liked him in the sequel as well. Anyway, that's Critters. It's a film that I grew up with. 1986. Definitely a fun little flick. Thanks for watching. Take care. Don't worry, there'll be another review of Making Wolf in London. And there'll be another review today. So hope you enjoy and stay tuned for more reviews.